Hello, I'm Morrisman, and this is my talk show, Tell It Like It Is. And my co-host is,
Joseph Spencer.
and today we're going to do a sensitive topic. It's been in the news for the last couple of months.
Couple
And
of
that's,
days. Excuse me.
yeah, and that is gun control. And before we get into this, I just want to say this, that my heart goes out to anybody who has lost a loved one due to gun violence. I mean, it's just an unfortunate situation, and again, my heart goes out to those who have lost a loved one due to gun violence. And today we're going to discuss this topic, and our opinions, or at least I should say mine, because I can't speak for Joe, will be a little bit different from most people. And the reason being is, when someone is murdered regarding, gun violence, the first thing that, the community screams and the politician screams, we need tougher gun laws. And here is my take on that, and then I'm going to turn it over to Joe. If you took all the guns off the street tomorrow and not resolve the issues that drove people to use the guns, guess what? They're just going to knife you to death. You take their knives away, they're just going to beat you to death. So we don't deal in this country with the root issue. What causes this? We deal with the surface issue as far as, well, we're just going to deal with this and call it a day. But, it's like a weed. If you don't kill it from the root, it's just going to grow back. And that's basically the situation with the gun control. Because to me, it's not about gun control. It's about a decay in our moral fiber. That's the problem. And before I really get into that, I'm going to kind of turn it over to Joe and get his opinion and thoughts, and then I'm going to continue as far as what I think. So what do you think about that, Joe?
When I was a little boy, everybody was from the South. My family came up here in 1911.
Okay.
And as I grew up, I went from house to house in the neighborhood at the time. And everybody in the house, may they be from Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas, all those, they all had several weapons in the house.
Yeah, it was customary to have rifles displayed in the living room.
Displayed in the living room. In the 50s, you had the Korean War. There were men came back with boxes of ammo and M1s. When I was a kid, there were boxes of M1s, ammunition in the house in the M1. Those guns were not taken out the house by children.
And not used by children.
And not used by children.
They didn't take them to school. They get even with
school.
people that was bullying them.
Didn't take them to school. And guns were respected. Man,
they were basically for hunting back then, right?
Basically for hunting
and protection.
And protection.
Right.
Living in the United States, I truly believe if the majority of the people in the United States was disarmed, there are so many other countries that don't like the United States. I think the Americans have to be armed because of the past. Mm-hmm. If there are certain countries, once they realize that 1 out of 100,000 Americans don't have a weapon, there's going to be hell to pay on the street.
Yeah.
Now, this thing about kids on the street using guns, you become what your family is. If your family's a dope dealer and you're 5 or 6 years old, and you grow up to get 12, 13 years old, you see your daddy, that's what you're going to do. If your daddy and your brothers and your uncles, I'm going to shoot this MF tonight, that's what you're going to do.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we are basically our environment and our families. We grew up in environments that we basically dictate, or should I say we emulate what we experience. Because you would look like or stand out like a sore thumb if you didn't follow the trend or the flow, regardless if that flow was positive or negative. Now, here is my thing with the gun control, and I stress this. Anytime you can keep guns off the street is a wonderful thing, and I support that. What I don't support is this. It's interesting when we don't really think about things, and here it is. Criminals do not go to the gun store and get their guns.
No.
They get them illegally. So regardless of what you do legally, they still going to continue to do what they do illegally. So you might close off a small portion of a situation, and that's fun, wonderful. If you could save just one life as a result of these new laws, I'm all for it. But we're spinning our wheels and we're not going anywhere. Because again, here is my take. As far as gun control, we have a tendency in this country to deal with the surface issue and not the root issue. If you took all the guns off the street tomorrow, they just knife you to death. You take the knives away, they just beat you to death. So what you've just basically done was taking a weaponry of choice away, but you haven't solved the problem. And here is one of the problems, and a lot of people are going to get mad at me, but this show is about what we do. We tell it like it is. Here is the problem. We got too many freedoms in this country that allow us to do some reckless things, and as a result of that, innocent people get caught in the crossfire. And I'm going to say this. When I was growing up and when Joe was growing up, most likely our dads married our moms before we were born, okay? Now you got these teenagers having kids in their parents' house where they still getting taken care of. And that child they taking care of is in 17 years from now going to be the next guy out there shooting people.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying everybody that has that scenario that's going to happen, but over 80% of the young men that commit crimes, daddy wasn't in the house, daddy wasn't married to mama, you know, they see these guys coming in and out of their house, dating mama, you know, so that's the problem, you know, and if we can go back to the way that it used to be that two people fell in love, got married and had children, it'd be wonderful. Now, I know we can't turn the hands of time back, but we can try to instill and literally enforce a good way of living like we used to. That's the problem. It ain't the guns, okay? Because again, if you take the guns away, they're just gonna knife you to death. You know, we got to stop having children, and these children grow up and not have the balance. Because you could be the world's greatest mother, single parent, but guess what? Your kid still need his dad, okay? You can't be a dad. You can be the greatest mother in the world, but you can't be a dad. And that's the problem in this country. The majority of these young guys come from a situation where they never knew their daddy, daddy in jail, daddy never married mama. That's the problem. And let's try to focus and work on that issue, and that other gun issue will go away. Because when you got your mother and father in the house and teaching you right from wrong, most likely you're not going to be caught out there in 17 years from now shooting people, you know, in gangs, because gangs prey on the weak. They bring in these people that don't have a family structure to keep them on the straight and narrow, and they take them in. They become their family.
Become family.
Yeah, so we have to work on that issue, and that other issue will die off, because the air supply will be choked off from that issue. What do you think of that, Joe?
We have people out here just born psychotics, sociopaths.
Yeah.
You know, and it's a shame that some young men and some young women see sociopaths, psychotics as a role model, as being a strong person. But this person has a mental disability.
Yeah.
We've been brought up on film, violence in the film, violence in the home.
Yeah.
You know, spare the rod, spoil the child. I know that when my parents whooped me, it made me violent. You know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that violence extended on the street. When I got a certain age, can't nobody whoop me but mama and daddy. If you put your hands on me, you're not my mama, you're not my daddy. I'm gonna do something worse to you than, you know, because, you know, most kids, female or male, if they're not protected, is gonna resort to violence.
Yeah, it will. Because I look at the structure of the black family today versus when I was growing up versus you were growing up. You know, my mom, again, and my dad were married before they had me. My daughter was born after I married her mom. You know, now again, it's fashionable and it's okay that 17-year-old kids can have sex in their parents' house and then have kids. You know, we are responsible for our children, and we are the ones that set the standard. And if we don't do that, guess what? You're going to be bailing your kid out of jail every other month. You know, it's just sad, because what I see now is this, a new unlikable trend going on. Daddy is getting pushed out the picture because he was halfway in on it anyway. And now mama or grandmother is taking on, I call it the surrogate father role, when your parents or your grandparents are more or less your backup support. They don't supposed to engage or step up to become the parents, partial parents to their grandkids. You're doing your daughter or son an injustice by stepping into that role, because it's not your role to step in. Your child or grandchild has a mother and a father, and those two should be just that. And the role that they should play is just that. Not daddy getting pushed out the picture or he voluntarily walking off. Here come grandmama kind of stepping in and playing surrogate mother. That's not good. It is not good to do that. You know, and
At one time, when I was a little boy, my grandparents lived downstairs. My mother had a support group. When she went to go do something, do a little work or whatever, she was basically a housewife. She could depend on my grandparents to watch us.
yeah, and that's a good point, because the only time that my mother would probably watch, her grandkids was when we were at work or going to school or somewhere where we couldn't take our kids.
Right.
When my mother was growing up, my mother was always in the house. If she wasn't working, she was there with us.
Right.
She didn't pawn us off on anybody else, because that's the other new thing now. I need some me time. And you send your kids off to be with grandmama or cousin or uncle. That's ridiculous. Yeah? Unless you're going to work or school, or you have something that you have to attend to that your kids can't go to, you need to have your tail at home.
I thought my mother was psychic because I go around the corner and do something stupid, what little boys do. When I got back, she would know what I did.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because we no longer have what you're talking about.
Right.
And what we're talking about is neighborhood participation and watching over and protecting every child in the neighborhood. Now people don't even want to speak to you on the street, let alone get to know you and get to know your kids and know who your kids are when they see them. We're getting away from all of that. And as a result of it, that's what we have now, which is a mess.
Yeah.
Again, and I'm not saying that every situation that's like that will turn out bad, but the statistics show that over 70, 80, 90% of these people that have these kids that are still kids themselves, 16, 17 years from now, most likely they're going to get in some type of altercation or get involved in drugs, gangs, and become a regular on the police blotter.
And another thing I thought about, too, is Jim Crow taught our people that it was all right to kill niggas.
Yeah.
And that's a part of it, too. That's been passed down, I was born in 1948, and one day I realized that slavery and Jim Crow was supposedly had been behind me. It was just 83 years.
Oh, yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
And we're going to touch on that topic. We're going to actually do a whole show on that, as far as what you just talked about. As far as slavery is not dead, it's still alive. You know what it's called now? Welfare, Section 8, okay? Whenever anybody controls your money, they control you.
They control you.
But that's another topic that we're going to tackle in its full
But it still
length.
have a lot to do with that gun thing.
Yeah.
A gun thing becomes some little boys' penises. I've had young friends that I met when they were 12 and 14 years old, in particular neighborhoods I lived in. We're sitting on the porch, smoking a cigarette, having a beer. He's 18 or 19 years old. He come up, can I have a beer? You're too young, but take one anyway, to make him feel part of this grown man thing. Mm-hmm. So what's wrong with you? Man, I feel like shooting somebody. So what are you saying? Joe, I just feel like shooting somebody. What do you feel? Oh, I know you. But if you feel like shooting somebody, I'm here. You might, get in your head one day. You just want to shoot anybody, but I've been no, man. You don't supposed to feel like shooting somebody.
Yeah. It's a scary thought when someone says that to you, because I had a very similar experience when I was a teenager, and I was on my way to a house party, a little innocent house party on a Friday night, and I ran into a guy that lived in the neighborhood that we knew each other, but we were not hanging buddies.
Right.
Because there was just something that was never right about this guy, and I kept my distance from him. So we're walking in the same direction, and we talking, and it was kind of like, it was in August. He had a long trench coat. I'm like, why you got a trench coat on in August, man? He opened up his jacket, he had a sawed-off shotgun. And I'm like, what are you doing with that? Well, I'm on the way to the party, and if anything jump off, I'm be, I got protection.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, if you feel that threatened that you got to bring a shotgun to a party, maybe you need to stay home, okay?
But that comes from feeling unprotected. You some neighborhoods you're not protected in school.
Yeah.
You're not even protected in church.
Yeah. And let me just say this. The guy that I just spoke about, and this took place in the late 70s, he's in jail now.
Yeah, of
but
course,
anyway, he's in jail now.
And some kids are not protected in their home. So a lot of kids I started carrying an ice pick over there on 47th Street. Not a gun, but an ice pick. Yeah. Because I was getting my ass whooped in school, getting my ass whooped at church, getting my ass whooped at home, and you couldn't walk down the street.
Right, and you did it for protection. Not to make anybody a victim.
A bit, right.
Which is a little different, and sometimes, I don't agree or disagree with it, but You got to protect yourself and you got to survive.
Right. I never use it on anybody, but
Right.
but there are certain people. If you didn't have some kind of armament on you, I would,
Yeah.
with my eye,
Yeah, got to get them off you.
get them off of you.
Yeah, because if not, you'll be
You
running
just-
home every day.
Every day.
Getting robbed, getting beat up.
Getting robbed, getting beat up.
Yeah.
Poor family. Got some all-stars on my feet. If they were brand new, they've been taken by 8, 9 dudes. And some of these people were in their late teens or early 20s.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're 12, 13 years old and you have 4 or 5 dudes that's in their late teens and early 20s want to take your draws, what are you going to do?
Yeah, you got to protect yourself.
You know?
Which again is totally different from I'm going out there with a gun to deliberately rob somebody, scare somebody, hurt somebody. And again, until we start to focus and work on the issue at hand, all the gun control laws in the world is not going to do nothing.
Not doing any good at all.
It just makes me kind of angry that everybody doesn't see the light. We ratting on this everybody else consensus that this is what we should do, when what we should do is take back our kids and let them be kids and be the parents we need to be. There was no way that my mother was going to allow me to have sex in her house.
Not at
No.
all.
Until I became an older man or older person to go out and get my own place and do my own thing, that's when that took place. Not laying up there when my mother at work screwing,
Or you snuck and did it.
Yeah.
Now, I
Yeah.
had sex in my mother's house,
Yeah.
but she was downtown, and it really wasn't. It was in the basement or in the garage, I want to say something else. My first drive-by, I must have been 12 or 13 years old. His name was Richard Ridley, 47th and Princeton. At the bus stop, he got taken out. 50 million years later, I hadn't mentioned this story, and a friend of mine, he's a street person, I said, I can understand what. He said, Joseph, that wasn't a gang initiation. And I never thought about that. I said, man, you mean to tell somebody had to be in the game? They saw your friend standing on the corner. Yeah. If he was by himself, they did a drive-by and popped him.
Yeah.
That initiation, that's insane.
Yeah.
Why bring this suffering down on your own people?
Well, I guess one of the answers to that question, there's many answers to that question, is a lot of people that do that kind of stuff never venture out in their own neighborhood. I used to work downtown for many years, and there were people that lived like walking distance from downtown that never been downtown.
Oh, man, I forgot about that.
The projects, 29th and State. Those
Yeah.
people were like living back in the 70s. They never went downtown, and they had no reason because they had no money. But again, if we look at the statistics, it basically points to the majority of these people, young people that are doing this, don't have a stable family structure. So let's work on that. Again, it'll choke off the life of the guns and the killing of the violence by the guns if we do that. But we're too busy showboating and doing this thing about the gun control. It's a hot button topic, so let's pounce on it. And when the smoke clears, we haven't done nothing. But do this. Stricter gun laws will make it just more difficult for the law-abiding citizen to get a gun, because now they're trying to implement a stiffer penalty if you don't report your gun stolen or lost. First of all, most people that get their gun stolen, they're going to report it.
Right.
And then they said
That's
that they were
illegal.
right. Then they said they was going to give a stiffer penalty if you give your gun to somebody to commit a crime. Who's going to do that? Who's going to give their registered gun in their name to a criminal? It's absurd. It's ridiculous. And again, that's not the problem. The problem is too many young folks having kids that they can't take care of and they grow up to be crazy. Oh, wow. That's the problem.
I agree with you. But what about, I'll be 65. What about the guys and the females in my neighborhood who didn't have fathers, who became doctors and lawyers?
Yeah,
and police
it's a small
officers?
percentage, but
Yeah.
like
But
I
it
said,
still happens.
and like I said, and I stress this, every situation that's like that is not going to turn out that way. I'm saying the majority of those situations turn out that way. So I just want to make that clear that I'm not saying that every young guy that didn't have a father around going to be a criminal. No, I'm just saying that the majority of these people in a situation resort to violence and when they get older. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm trying to express.
Man, it really bothers me that I'm going to die and still see our people murdering each other.
It's not going to change until that changes. So this is going to conclude another segment of Tell It Like It Is. I am your host, Morrisman, my
And
co-host.
I'm Joseph Spencer, and I'm angry as hell.
And until next time, take care and keep thinking.